welcome to my channel. I'm Michaela Peters. I'm feeling so good about the fact that I finally finished cleaning my apartment after 3 days, 3 half days of course, because I have to work, or whatever you want to call them, like 3 hours in the morning. Why did it take so long? Because since I've gotten back from every trip that I've gone on, which has now been like 4 or 5, I haven't really unloaded, unpacked, gone through everything that was with that trip. So that was what I did today. I also have to do this thing where I basically liquidate almost all the items that are in my room, like the clothes and stuff, and then put them into a closet. So that takes a while, and then part of it is cleaning, like actual cleaning, and then part of it is just organizing and clearing out. And yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's worth it because when I rent out my room, obviously I don't have to worry about paying for it that month, so that's great. Okay, so today's inspiration also comes from a song, which I feel so corny doing, like, oh, this song reminded me of this thing. But the reason why I think of this song, I'm getting a lot of people being like, you should try singing on your channel. I am actually good at singing, kind of, at least to the point where when I do karaoke, people do come up and compliment me, but I just feel like I wouldn't know how to get the, like the sound quality to be good enough that I feel like it would come through nicely. So in other words, I have to actually get a mic for that, and yeah, future problem. But anyway, one time I was doing karaoke in Finland. One of the other reasons I love Finland, I haven't talked about that actually, have I? I love how you can be in the middle of nowhere and there's still karaoke. Russia's a little bit like that too, but not as much as Finland. It's great. So I was in Tampere, actually, and singing the song called Maybe You're the Problem. And one of my friends comes up to me after and was like, that was well done, but maybe there's a deeper meaning. And he goes like this. And I'm like, okay, because I understood what he was referring to. And it was basically this other interpersonal problem I had with a mutual friend of ours, where that person was not very nice to me. Actually, probably the meanest person to me ever in the world. So I do not talk to that person anymore. But it just actually made me start thinking of all the random people I talk to, which is a lot of people. And especially a lot of friends here in Finland. I have a lot of male friends in Finland. Again, I'm going to attribute that to going to a tech university and knowing a lot of people from there. And it seems like there are a lot of people who, and this goes back to what I've been talking about a lot already, who are very disgruntled. Not everybody. Okay, some people don't care, but some people I talk to are very disgruntled by the fact that they can't really find somebody. And that's where I started thinking about this. And this is not just me talking at people. This is me talking to myself too, by the way. Maybe you're the problem that you can't find somebody. And what do I mean by that? Because I don't have this book with me nearby. I started thinking about, actually I have this book nearby. Okay, I'm going to interrupt this to show you this School of Life self-awareness book that I bought in Ireland for €8.75. And I'm sure there's good stuff in here. Yes, actually, what I'm going to talk about from this, the 1 5-second thing I read in here and decided that I liked it, talked about how it, sort of the thing I say or said to my sister recently, it is the natural order of the universe for kids at some point to hate their parents. And the reason why I mention this is because a lot of times when you get really into all the, and I feel stupid that I only learned this a couple of years ago. Meanwhile, some people have known this for a while. Your relationship with your parents affects your future romantic relationships. And sometimes if you're wondering why it's hard for you to get into a relationship, have you really thought about the relationship with your parents? And this is something I had no idea about until I came to Finland, and my one roommate started explaining to me oh, the stuff that happens in your childhood affects you. And I was always like, no, it's your fault for acting however, and you have to fix it. It's not, a predefined thing, which let's strike a balance there, because yes, it's important to pay attention to both of those things. It's sort of you may have the predisposition towards whatever, but then the certain environment agitates it. So very stupid example. If I'm autistic and then I'm in an environment where there's a lot of stimulation, I'm not going to want to be in that environment because it's overwhelming to me. So it's sort of finding the right environment, finding the right fit, maybe, or finding a way to cope with the innate challenge you've been given. So if you grow up in not a great environment in terms of like developing healthy attachment, this is going to translate into your relationships. Now, this doesn't mean that it's impossible, but with a lot of the stuff that they've done on attachment theory and kind of, okay, like what I've noticed. So they talk about, like, for instance, people on Tinder who will go on there, and it's like mostly the pool of people who are trying to date are the avoidant people. They just keep avoiding each other. So basically, you'll get into a relationship with somebody for 5 minutes or whatever you want to call it, talking, whatever, and then you both start avoiding each other, and then the relationship ends. And some people keep getting into like this cycle. But what they found is that when people, whether they're anxious, whether they're avoidant, whether they're the fun mix of both, the disorganized one, if they enter into a relationship with a secure person, then they actually won't have these attachment issues because the secure person kind of helps to regulate them. So my point is, a lot of the relationship struggles I've seen have probably been based around the fact that nobody really had a secure attachment style in that relationship. Now, how do you get a secure attachment style aside from dating somebody with a secure attachment style? It's honestly a mystery to me, and I don't have the answer to that. If I did, I would tell you. I'm going to assume that it has also something to do with learning to cultivate relationships that are supportive for you, where you feel safe, where you feel like you can trust the person, and that doesn't have to be romantic. That can even be in a friend way. And then again, like I've already talked about, getting away from the people who are not nice to you is very important. I think for me, what I started to realize was, I've spoken about this more in Russian, like things that I feel like, you know, as I started reflecting on this, weren't fair in terms of my interactions with family, right? And I have a subconscious belief that I deserve to be treated a certain way, which is not really a way that I think anybody should treat anybody, if I'm being very honest. And I think being aware of this is the first step, right? This self-awareness book. But I don't think it's the end-all be-all, because it happens so subconsciously, unconsciously, whatever, both of these, that as much as I know it, and it's like knowledge is power, it is so hard because relationships are so based off of emotion. And it's sort of like you've been given from childhood, like you've been trained to have this emotional programming. And it's really hard to rewire that. It's not impossible, but oh my gosh, it's just so much work. And I guess what is my point with this whole thing is just that, you know, this is something I've become aware of in myself and something I'm still actively working through, but it's something that I maybe want to encourage more people who are sitting there being like, why is this not working out for me, to think about how you relate to other people. Like I said, some people have the fun disorganized one where it's like, first you feel really clingy to the person, then you feel like I don't want to be around them at all. And yeah, that's not great. So it's like working on maintaining a stable image of somebody, you know, in their absence, or just in general, like as much of the time as you can. Because I've also noticed that like people I've, you know, had relationships with, and like, you know, friendships even, like they have like an object permanence issue where if I'm not around all the time and like actively involved in their lives, it's like hard for them to understand that I still exist. This is a really confusing one for me, and I wonder if maybe part of this is because I grew up with family who was physically far away from me, like part of my family. I'm not sure though that makes sense, but I don't know. I think I also, because I started having so many love miles, as they're called, like so many people that I like love and care about who live in all different places, it's like for me, seeing somebody as often as I can is like great. So, I don't know. I just started thinking about this, like, maybe I'm the problem. Or maybe, you know, like looking at yourself instead of blaming everybody else could be a more productive and honestly, like, happier and more optimistic way to move forward with finding the one. But I think that with a relationship, there comes to be a lot of compromise and a lot of sacrifice, and I think in a way that's beautiful, but I think it's also okay to recognize if you're young, especially, like maybe you're not ready for that yet, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But one of the things I think in terms of building trust and commitment and all the good things, a solid foundation for a relationship is really like trying to behave consistently towards the other person, because there's nothing that diminishes trust and a sense of security and safety quicker than being very, what is the word I'm looking for? Like flighty, but that's not the word I'm looking for. Like, just the idea that you're kind of like unreliable and not around like consistently. Yeah. Okay, so I guess that's kind of it for today because I gotta take a shower and get out of here. As usual, this is like my story of my life every day, just trying to get out of the house. And then I've got my flight back to the US, woohoo. I mean, not really, I don't want to go. I talked about this in the Russian side yesterday. Oh well, it is what it is, whatever. I get to see my dog, the one who's still alive, so that's good. All right, so I'll try to get back to this next week. I'm going to take a weekend break, and I don't know if at some point I want to expand on this, but these were just the thoughts I was having. This is kind of like the thoughts I start to have the more single people I talk to who are like getting older and don't seem happy being single. And then I'm like, well, I'm not going to pretend like everybody who's in a relationship has a necessarily healthy relationship because that's not a reality either, but yeah, it's rough out there. That's all I have to say. All right, so until next week, bye.